Leadership and spirituality. So some believe that spirituality is really important and good leadership is always going to include spirituality. It should come through in the workforce and be a prominent in a leadership position. Others say that spirituality has no place in leadership. I kind of struggle with this um, because I think, in the true sense of spirituality, that it should be in the workplace, and it's inherently is in the workplace because our spirituality is very key and core to who we are. Our spirituality drives our beliefs and our foundation, and whether that translates to being religious, being a Christian, being a Muslim, being whatever, that is core to who we are. And so those core beliefs are going to come through in who we are and how we do our job and how we lead our team. So in that sense, yes, spirituality has to be in the workplace, and it just will, because it's part of who we are. But I think what the question is more addressing in regards to spirituality is where spirituality gets confused with religion. And they're two separate things, but kind of blurred together because, a person can be spiritual and not be religious at all. A person can be spiritual and not go to church. They can, spirituality is not exclusive to religion. And I think when we mix it in and we think of religion in the workplace as when we think of spirituality but mean religion, then I think that's where it becomes a problem. And I think the problem with that is that people really easily confuse their own individual spirituality and core beliefs and how that translates into their religious beliefs, and try to apply that to others. So you may believe that lying is wrong, for example, and so you're not going to lie. And in work, because you believe that, you're not gonna lie at work, you're not gonna lie at home, because that's your core belief. Now, is it your place to tell someone else in the workplace, hey, I don't believe in lying, so you can't believe in lying, you can't lie at work? No, it's not. Now, you can't lie at work. Well, I think some cases you can, but you shouldn't lie at work or in any scenario because it's morally wrong and ethically wrong, not because of a religious belief. And I think a really good example of where this has become a problem and where we see exactly the confusion of spirituality with religion, and it crosses over, is in Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has been very prominent in the news as far as being considered religious and anti-LGBTQ. So much so that they have been in the news a lot, and they've even lost some opportunities for business. Vantage Airport Group says that they were removing Chick-fil-A as a vendor after groups opposed it and didn't want it in the terminal because of their and their prior anti-LGBTQ position, and saying that they don't promote an inclusive environment. The specific quote from Twitter: Vantage Airport Group says it will remove Chick-fil-A as a vendor after many groups like LGBTQ Commission opposed it being in the terminal, saying it doesn't promote an inclusive environment. So, what they're getting at, Chick-fil-A used to make significant contributions to organizations that were openly anti-LGBTQ. And that's changed some, but I think it's still widely believed that Chick-fil-A is anti-LGBTQ. And, I've even seen Twitter videos where someone saw their mom come in with a bag from Chick-fil-A, and they are LGBTQ, and said, Mom, what are you doing? Why are you going to Chick-fil-A? And I think that there's still, the LGBTQ community still feels unwelcome in Chick-fil-A, both as customers and as employees, and it's not that it's um, an issue that the ownership, their spirituality drives them to disagree with LGBTQ, but it's their position of trying to influence that and force that on someone else. I think we also see that, I think about my prior employers, and I've had employers who were very openly Christian, and talked about like where they went to church, and church on Sunday and this and that, and it was very, very known that they went to church and that they were a spiritual leader in their church. And when I think back to those leaders who I knew and who were very open about it and really brought it into work, as far as talking about it and making it obviously influencing their leadership style, those leaders for spirituality in the workplace is sense of satisfaction and fulfillment for the employees. And I think that's really important, and it is good, and that's why we shouldn't try to sort of stifle it, but we also don't need to make a point to bring it in. And I think overall it really just kind of ends up being, and when it's encouraged, it sort of allows people to have this free pass attitude and say, well, I'm doing XYZ because of my spirituality, because of this belief or that belief. And they use it as a free pass. I think we've seen that a lot with some of the communities down in my area where I am now, with regards to COVID and vaccinations. There's a lot of people who said, well, faith over fear. We're not going to enforce this or we're not going to enforce that because we have faith over fear. And they use that religious and spirituality belief as a free pass to do what they want. And that's okay when it's only affecting you, but it's not okay when it affects others. And that's where I just don't think it's appropriate in the workplace. Cotter's 8-stage theory and appreciative inquiry method of change. So Cotter's 8-stage theory has basically 3 parts: the definition, the implementation, and the secure phase. So in the definition, we're highlighting the urgency, determining why change is so necessary. What's the problem? Why do we have to change? And then building the team. Who's going to implement the change? Defining the new vision, how things should. In the implementation phase, sharing the vision, telling people how things are going to be and why, encouraging them to act, giving good reasons to change, creating quick wins, establishing achievable goals. And then in the secure phase, we're tracking the progress, which is measuring and evaluating the change, and then strengthening the change, so making change part of the culture. Now, the appreciative inquiry is called asset-based sometimes, or strengths-based approach to systems, and that's because it focuses on positive idea generation over negative problem identification. So where Cotter's, the beginning phase, you are identifying the problem. In appreciative theory, you're looking for positive ideas. You're not looking for a problem. And so the question is not what's the problem, it's what is the focus of the inquiry, more clarifying. And then discovery, what gives life, appreciating. And so really the whole model looks at questions and dialogue to uncover assets, strengths, opportunities, advantages within both the organization and team and communities, and then work together to implement them for improvement. So it's more positive. Organizing engagement. says appreciative inquiry is grounded in social constructives theory, which posits that human development is a fundamentally social process, and that both knowledge, how people come to understand, interpret, and experience the world and others, and organizations, how people organize themselves to achieve goals, are constructed through cultural and social interactions, relationships, and dialogues. I think it's so interesting with appreciative theory, where he talks about, or where they speak about how human development is and how we're learning. And the reason I think it's so interesting is it made me really think about how we learn, human development, and getting back to the basics. So for Christmas, I bought my nephew's little puzzle. So it's got the shapes and different colors. And as a toddler, I expect that, he's going to we'll open the package for him, and he's going to take these out, and he's going to feel them and turn them around and, check it out and try it in different spots. And then he'll find the spots that they go into. And I think that's really kind of what it comes down to, because we are constantly learning and developing like that. And so when we're a toddler, it's little things like these shapes and blocks and how they fit into spaces. As an adult, it's our ideas and our beliefs and things that make us thrive and what we do well in an organization. And I see the appreciative inquiry method as more kind of focused on that human development and like trying different things and sort of taking the block and, looking at it, feeling it, touching it, testing it out and becoming familiar with it and seeing where it fits and where it doesn't fit. And that's all part of the process, and that's all positive. We don't look at a child and say like, oh, they're trying to put the square peg into the round hole. Like, that's dumb. We look at that and we say, yeah, they're figuring out how to put the square peg in the square hole, and you let them play and work it out. As an adult, so much we don't do that, and in organizations we don't do that. So I think the appreciative inquiry method is really kind of coming back to that, and just looking at the whole thing as a positive. And everything's an affirmative in the phases of destiny and dream and design. Like, these are all positives, where as in the other model, when we look at Cotter's 8-stage, it's focusing more on the problem and the negative, and then driving home like, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and encouraging that. So there's positives to it, but the positives really come later. So yeah, there's a similarity that there's positives, and there's similarity that you're trying to get buy-in from the people as far as encouraging them to act and sharing the vision. Those have similarity, because the appreciative inquiry theory is still, they're getting buy-in, encouragement to act, and that kind of stuff. But it's more being told how to do it. So if we think back to the puzzle, it's more like, hey, you're going to do this puzzle, and you're going to learn how to do it, and this is what we're going to do to figure it out, and this is why it's going to be so great. Whereas appreciative inquiry theory is kind of like, hey, here's something. Let's play with it. Let's figure it out. And then figuring that out together. And I think that that's just far more effective. It doesn't mean that Cotter's is not valuable in certain scenarios, but I think it definitely is more intuitive and more encouraging of creativity. And again, it doesn't mean that Cotter's is not valuable. There's certain scenarios, and definitely the size of the group can make a difference, and the maturity level of your group and the team, and where they are as far as their experience levels and development levels. You can give Legos, you can give tiny Legos to a 6 or 8-year-old, but to a toddler, you wouldn't give tiny Legos, you'd give them the Duplo Legos. And so that's where, kind of in learning and in work situations where we're having to work through change, in some situations, Cotter's not always going to be better, because it's the pieces in big chunks that the toddler's not going to swallow. It's safe for them. And whereas a more mature team, a team that has a lot more trust, then it's a lot easier to go with the appreciative inquiry model because you can give them the tiny Legos to play with. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're good or bad. It's just a matter of where you are.